Imagine the bitter cold biting at your face, starving for food and warmth day after day. Mathew Henson withstood this time after time, but he never gave up till he succeeded. And even then, there was still more for him to overcome.
Mathew Henson was born on August 8, 1866, in Charles County, Maryland. His parents were free blacks, even before the Civil War, which had ended a year after Mathew was born.
Life was hard for Mathew as a kid. His parents suffered attacks by the Ku Klux Klan. To escape this racial violence, his family moved to a place just outside of Washington, D.C. But this did not end his hardship. His mom died when he was 7 years old. He had to move in with his uncle, with whom he spent the next 6 years. When his dad died when he was 13, his uncle couldn't support him anymore, and he had to leave and become a waiter and dishwasher.
But Mathew was born with an adventurous heart. He decided that sailing would be a good way to save the world. He joined the ship, the Katie Hines, as a cabin boy. A cabin boy is a person usually between 12 and 17 that acts as a servant for the captain. He returned to Washington, D.C., where he met Robert Perry. Perry was an officer in the U.S. Navy who, like Henson, sought adventure. This would turn out to be a lucky break for Henson.
So when Perry decided to explore the North, Henson was one of the people he asked to come with him. During the first exploration in 1891 to map the northern coast of Greenland, an Eskimo saw him and thought he was an Eskimo too. The Eskimos took him into their clan. He learned to speak their language, and they taught him how to drive a dog sled. By the second mission, he was an expert dog sled driver.
On the 1898 expedition to try and reach the North Pole, the Windward got stuck in the ice. Henson and Peary and several other men had to try and make it to Fort Conger. On the way there, Peary got frostbite and gangrene in his feet. He had to have 8 of his toes amputated. Henson, lucky for Peary, knew how to treat gangrene.
In 1901, they set out on another expedition to try and reach the North Pole. The sleds broke early and it failed horribly. The expedition only lasted 8 days, but Henson didn't give up. Peary decided that he needed a ship that could bring him far enough into the Arctic ice to reach the North Pole. No such ship existed, so he had to build one. While Peary built the ship, Henson traveled around the U.S., working on the railroads. While in the South, twice he was almost killed by bigoted whites. It was a sad reminder of how segregated the U.S. still was.
Finally, in 1905, the Roosevelt was built. By 1906, the second to last expedition to the North Pole was on its way. Unfortunately, during the expedition, shifting ice broke the supply line that Henson and Peary had developed, and the expedition had to be abandoned. But they did set a new record for farthest latitude a man had ever gone into the North.
While back in the U.S. getting ready for their final expedition, Henson married a woman named Lucy Ross, who he had met before the Roosevelt was built. It was a short time, though, because in 1908, Henson and Peary set out on their last attempt at the pole with several other people, including several Eskimos and a man named Bartlett.
It eventually came down to Henson and Bartlett, and Peary chose Henson to be the man to accompany him to the North Pole. On April 7, 1909, Henson, Peary, and a few Eskimos came into the North Pole. He was 42 years old. Henson thought he would be treated as a hero. When he came back to the U.S., he was dead wrong.
When they first got back to the U.S., they had to deal with a rival's false claim at the North Pole. During the debate, Peary had to turn on him, saying the reason he took Henson to the North Pole instead of Bartlett was he didn't think Henson could handle commanding a return group to the Roosevelt. It was a complete lie.
Racism was just too strong in America still. Though they eventually won the debate, Henson still got almost no recognition. He had to work on minor jobs like parking cars in a garage or being a messenger boy. Finally, in 1945, he was awarded with the Silver Medal from the Navy, 35 years after he reached the North Pole, when he was 79 years old. In 1954, Henson and his wife met President Eisenhower in the White House, completing his full recognition.
Henson died the year after, on March 9, 1955, at the age of 88. But his amazing legacy lives on.